Hey, willkommen Leute zu einem neuen Let's Play, würde ich sagen. Wieder mal ein ganzes Game, weil ihr das gern habt. Es ist ein echt gutes Game, nämlich Edith Finch. What Remains of Edith Finch. Und Edith ist hier. Das ist hier quasi ihr Stammbaum und es geht um ihre Geschichte. Heute haben wir ein bisschen schlechtere Lichtverhältnisse, das tut mir leid. Nächstes Mal dann wieder bessere, hoffe ich. Und ja, es geht eigentlich so quasi um die Todesgeschichte ihrer Familie, was da so passiert. Und es ist ein wunderschönes Spiel. Also ich kann es auch anderen empfehlen. Es ist wirklich storyhaftig und es geht nicht so lange. Und wir haben viel zu entdecken. Ich habe es schon mal gespielt und muss sagen, es hat mich wirklich berührt. Und wir starten auch neu, dass ihr alles erleben könnt. Ja, zum Beispiel mit Odin hat die Familie angefangen und dann geht man so hinauf und dann hier am Schluss ist Edith. Und wie wir sehen können, hier sind alle anderen schon tot. Leider. Aber ja, fangen wir mal an. So. What Remains of Edith Finch?
A lot of this isn't going to make sense to you, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to start at the beginning, with the house.
Ich glaube, so ist besser. So, na, wir fangen an. Ich glaube, wir können nicht rennen, oder? Wir können zoomen so. Ein bisschen. Dann uns alles anschauen.
But I wasn't allowed inside half the rooms.
Das da ist das Haus der Familie Finch. Hier, schöner Blumendings, ne? Hier können wir mal aufmachen.
Inside the mailbox were bills from 7 years ago, marked urgent, open immediately.
Schon mal gesehen, die Rechnungen sind...
Since my brother Lewis's funeral.
No trespassing. Also es ist auch wirklich eine schöne Gegend hier.
My mother left me a key, but didn't tell me what it unlocked. Maybe she thought I'd know. Or she thought that the mystery would be enough to bring me back.
Und ja, also die Atmosphäre ist wirklich sehr schön. Es ist ein schönes Erlebnisspiel. Wir haben Natur, wir haben viele kleine Geschichten, die wir erleben werden zusammen. Und auch andere Sachen.
No one had driven this way in a long time, but I saw a few hoof prints.
Wir können hier durch. Es gibt hier zwei Wege unten durch, kann man auch wählen. Dann geht man so ein bisschen durch den Wald. Oder haben wir ja nicht. Hirsch. Hallo. Tschüssi. Tschüssikowski. Kann man nicht nachspionieren, leider.
The truth is, even after I inherited the house, I never thought I'd come back to it. But now I had questions about my family that only the house knew the answers to. The house was exactly like I remembered it, the way I'd been dreaming about it.
Ich hoffe auch, dass Ton ist fein und alles. So, es sollte gehen. Hoffe ich doch. Mal kurz checken, dass es funktioniert. So. Ich schätze schon. Sonst haben wir ein Problem.
As a child, the house made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't put into words. Now, as a 17-year-old, I knew exactly what those words were. I was afraid of the house.
Entschuldigung, Leute. Also sie hatte Angst vor dem Haus, aber versteht man auch so ein bisschen, so groß wie es ist. Wir können hier rein. Wir haben einen Schlüssel bekommen. Ich hoffe, der ist für die Tür.
I hoped the key might unlock the front door. It didn't. Looking in, I felt like the house itself had been waiting for me.
Das ist eine echt schöne Lebensgeschichte. Ich hoffe, euch macht es jetzt auch Spaß, wie wir hier durchgehen werden. Vielleicht gehen wir mal durch den Rückgang. Ich weiß, es ist schon lange her, dass ich es gespielt hatte. Können wir hier durch? Wir gehen einfach mal durch die Klappe.
Crawling through the doggy door used to be a lot easier when I was 11.
Also, es ist eine kleine Frau, ne? Machen wir mal Licht an hier.
The power had been turned off the night we left.
Schade, Marmelade. Mit 2 Fahrräder, ein bisschen Fahrzeug, ne? Aber ich glaube, gehen jetzt mal rein, was ist denn hier für ein Ball? Ah.
For the first time in years, I felt like I was home.
Ein bisschen Orange Tabby.
But instead of a family, there were just memories of one. Like how only one restaurant would deliver to our house, so we had Chinese a lot.
Geil. Meine Mutter würde es lieben. Die liebt Chinesisch über
Nothing
alles.
in the house looked abnormal. There was just too much of it, like a smile with too many teeth.
Ja, auch richtige Bücherwürmer hatten wir,
Table
ja.
was still a wreck from the night we left.
Entschuldigung.
It was like a bomb had gone off, killing everyone but sparing the furniture.
Oh, da stand was. Der man gesagt hat gerade. Ich hoffe, ich habe es verstanden.
My mom was the only one of us who could imagine Great Grandma Edie living in a nursing home.
Ja, hier ist auch ein echt langer Tisch, ne? Respektive mit Verlängerung.
After Lewis started working at the cannery, we all got pretty sick of salmon. Except our cat, Molly.
Immer dieser Lachs, ne? Da ist auch schon ein Türchen. Können wir da rein? Wir können bei jeder Tür so ein bisschen reinschauen.
Edie told me once that every Finch who ever lived is buried somewhere in the library.
Gehen wir mal rauf ins Haus. Hier für die
After
Omi.
Milton disappeared, Mom sealed up all the bedrooms. Then Edie retaliated and drilled peepholes.
Gucklöcher. Ja, Privatsphäre war jetzt so halb, ne? Hier ist Eddie.
The last time I was in Edith Senior's room, I was 10 and she was painting my portrait.
Das steht auch immer, wie lange sie hier gelebt haben. Und hier, immer, dass die Frau einfach länger gelebt hatte.
As a kid, I just assumed every house had peepholes and sealed rooms you weren't allowed inside of.
Ist einfach eine Toilette. Gregory hat hier gelebt, oder wie? Hier war Calvin.
My Grandpa Sam spent 7 years sharing a room with his dead brother, Calvin.
Der arme Calvin. Wir sehen auch überall Familienfotos und alles Mögliche.
Whenever people ask me about my family, the first thing they always want to know about is Barbara.
War auch eine Beliebte quasi, weil die
Edie's
Darstellerin war,
father
ne?
Odin built the original house.
Die ist Barbara. Die
Barbara was a
bekannte.
child star for 2 years, until America grew out of it. Mom must have locked the 3rd floor stairs on the night we left.
Das sieht alles so, ne, wenn man so raufschaut, dann erkennt man gar nicht, dass das nach oben geht. Hier ist eine Tür offen. Molly.
Molly always seemed like a girl I could imagine being friends with, if she hadn't died in 1947.
Ich habe auch süße Mäuse überall. Die hat sicher Mäuse geliebt. Was ist denn das für ein Zimmer?
I spent a lot of time playing in Great Uncle Walter's room. I think my mom sometimes regretted not sealing it up. Lewis told me there were secret passages, but I never believed him. Turns out, my mom was really good at keeping secrets.
Pass
Now it was
auf.
time to find out what my mom had been afraid of.
Jetzt geht es in andere Zimmer. Hier haben wir eigentlich auch. Alle Zimmer sind so süß dekoriert. Ich bin geduckt,
From the
ne?
paintings on the wall, it was clear my brother Milton had been here before me. Reading this, maybe it sounds like I had a plan. But I had no idea what was behind that door.
Hier haben wir Molly, glaube ich, ne?
Just
Mein
like I
Mollys
had no
Zimmer.
idea where all this was gonna lead.
Prinzessin Molly. Mit dem Pferdchen. Ah, hier sehen wir noch ein bisschen vom Zimmer, wie es ausgesehen hat. Und hier hatte sie immer schon einen Blick auf den See, oder ist das Meer? Bin nicht sicher. Molly. Molly Finch.
December 13th, 1947. Dear Diary, I'll be gone soon, but I wanted to tell somebody about what's gonna happen. It started when Mom sent me to bed without dinner. I woke up and I was starving, so I looked around for something to eat. The gerbil food was dry, but I didn't mind it. Mom, can I come out now?
Sweetheart, it's late. Go to sleep.
Also ich glaube, soweit ich es gesehen habe, geht es immer um die Geschichten. Also wir sehen die einzelnen Geschichten der Personen, wie sie gestorben sind und woran. Und die werden fantasievoll erzählt. Und wir erfahren immer mehr. Und ja, so erleben wir alles.
All gone.
Ach, schade, die armen Süßigkeiten. Wollten wir ja noch ein paar haben. Dadurch erfahren wir halt so die ein oder andere Geschichte. Dachte schon daran.
I thought about eating Christopher, but I held back.
Der arme Christopher. Weil er ist so hungrig, ne? Oh, hier ist die Tür offen.
I
Zahnpastatube.
kept eating and eating.
Lecker. Gesund.
I ate a lot of things that night.
So Flecken auf der Haut, ne? Sehen gar nicht gesund aus. Ich weiß auch gar nicht, ob sie das essen sollte.
Then I heard chirping outside my window.
Oh, ein
It
Vögelchen.
was a barn swallow going back to her nest. I reached out for her. And suddenly, I was a cat.
Ja, jetzt haben wir eine Katze. Okay, wie komme ich jetzt voran? Ah, ich kann springen. Gut.
I tried to be quiet, but the bird was really scared.
Folgen jetzt den Vogel hier. Wir haben Hunger. Nom, nom. Komm her. Miau. Miau. Warte doch.
The babies were all gone.
Auch nichts zu essen für die arme Molly.
I jumped and I almost got her. I could tell she was getting really tired. Now I was up in the big tree. I promised Dad I wouldn't climb it anymore. All I cared about was eating that mama bird. I gobbled her up. And suddenly, I was an owl. First, all I heard was the wind. Then I heard little teeth nibbling in the grass. Rabbits.
Vielleicht kriegen wir irgendwo einen Hasen, aber es ist gar nicht so schwer, so zu fliegen. Ah, Kaninchen.
Looking up and seeing mine through my talons. I swallowed him up, and I didn't chew one bit. Then I flew off to find something bigger.
Also so, die hat ja wirklich einen Bärenhunger. Suchen wir mal was zu essen.
A mama rabbit.
Ein Mama-Kaninchen. Gönnen wir uns.
She was almost too big to carry. I started choking, but I couldn't stop eating. And suddenly, I was a shark.
Ab ins Wasser! So heiß.
Off a cliff and into the ocean. Now, I was hungrier than ever.
Ja, kann man das gedrückt halten? Auch nicht so lang, ne? Jetzt ein Fischchen hier hinterher.
I wanted fat, juicy seals. I tore off her flipper and it tasted really good. So hungry, I jumped out of the water. When I opened my eyes, everything had changed.
Sind wir jetzt... Sieht aus wie eine Schlange, ne?
Now I was a monster and I smelled people everywhere.
Das ist ein Monster. Und da? Ja, schon ein bisschen glibberig hier. Okay, jetzt sind wir im Kreis gegangen, glaube ich. Wir können ja da gerade ausgehen, denke ich, oder? Hier?
I was big, but I moved real quiet.
Hey. Verhau. Und zack. Wir haben immer noch Hunger. Erstmal noch einen Snack holen, ne? Alter.
I wanted to stop, but also I didn't.
Will drinking.
Passenger, I was still hungry. And across the water, I smelled something new. Something I had to have, so I swam towards it.
Also der hat ja Hunger nach allem.
I slithered onto the sand, and the good smell went into an old pipe.
Ab nach oben.
I got closer and closer.
Groß wir sind, ne?
All of my stomach started growling. And suddenly, I was me again. I held my breath for a long time, but I couldn't hear anything. I think it's waiting for me to fall asleep. But it's not going to wait much longer. It needs to feed, and we both know I will be delicious.
Das war die Geschichte der guten alten Molly.
I'm not sure if I believed all of that, but I'm sure Edie would have.
Molly starb, indem sie gegessen wurde, im Alter von 10. Schade aber auch um sie. Können wir hier raus?
This will be obvious later, but my mom never told me any of these stories. Edie would have, but Mom didn't like bringing up the past. Though, when we adopted a stray kitten, she was the one who named it Molly. I spent a lot of time in Great-Grandma Edie's room. Her room was like a museum.
Odin.
When Edie told people Sven was killed by a dragon, she could also have said he was building a dragon-shaped slide that collapsed. One summer, they evacuated the island, but Edie refused to go. For a few weeks, she was a celebrity. I hadn't thought of myself as Edith Jr. for a long, long time. Edie gave a big interview about a mole man living under the Finch house. My mom was furious.
Also wie man bemerkt, komme ich nicht so viel zum Erzählen jetzt gerade, weil es einfach permanent auch von ihr erzählt wird, ne?
Left, but Edie had already started to memorialize him. For 500 years, the Finches have been famous throughout Norway for their fortune and misfortune. Odin Finch buries the latest victims of the family curse, his wife Ingeborg and their newborn son, Johan. On January 7th, 1937, he set sail with his family and his house, hoping to leave the curse behind. But 40-foot waves off the coast of Washington send the house and Odin to the bottom of the sea. Odin's daughter Edie, with husband Sven and baby Molly, step ashore on their new home, Orcas Island. Odin Finch is the first to be buried in the new family cemetery. His daughter Edie is already dreaming of a new Finch house. Whatever's wrong with this family, it goes back a long ways.
Das war die Geschichte von Odin. Das ist nicht wirklich groß, ne? Aber ist trotzdem eigentlich schön zu wissen, wie Odin gestorben ist. Ich meine, er war der Erste der Familie, hatte eine Vorliebe für Eulen. Der hat ja viele Eulen gehabt, ne? Hier überall. So aussieht. Derpy. Oh, manche lebten ja richtig, richtig lange.
Even in her 90s, Sometimes Edie seemed a lot younger than my mother.
Dieses Badezimmer.
The only trace Grandpa Sam's first wife Kay left on the house was the pink bathroom. It was a pretty big trace.
Boah, nee. War doch nicht markant, sowas. Sowas hätte doch jede andere Frau auch gern, ne? Total.
There's a secret in this bathroom. It's in the last place you would look. It isn't in the cupboard.
Wie mache ich das? Uiuiui. Die Führung.
It's hidden in this book.
Oh, das ist cool gemacht. Richtig cool gemacht.
Sven gave Sam an old camera he'd refurbished. He never put it down.
Immer alte Fotos, ne? Echt ziemlich cool. Hier durch? Ah ja, können wir sogar. Milton. Bier. Oder was das auch ist. Und das waren die zwei Jungen.
I knew Grandpa Sam had a twin. And that he never talked about him.
Eigentlich richtig cool, ne? To Command Center. Hier, oh, Alter, stell dir vor, so das Kind
I
hat
guess
sowas.
my grandpa didn't like history any more than my mom did.
Calvin.
How I Want to Remember My Brother by Sam Finch. The thing I remember is that when he made up his mind, that was it.
Wir sind verletzt.
My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom. And he did. At Barbara's funeral, we swore we'd never be afraid again. And he wasn't. I think Calvin always wanted to fly.
Sam, Calvin, dinner's ready.
Hier rechts sehen wir. Calvin oder Sam? Ich weiß gar nicht. Skyto.
But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it.
Ah, so wie das sieht
I
das
told
ziemlich
him
tragisch
going
aus,
around
ne?
was impossible. Maybe if I hadn't said that,
Calvin, I'm not gonna tell you again.
maybe if the wind hadn't picked up, then maybe he'd still be here. But I doubt it. I think he'd already made up his mind.
Tut mir leid für die Leute mit Motion Sickness, ne? Vielleicht nicht so geil.
That's what I want to remember about my brother. he did.
Ein ziemlich tragischer Tod.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing.
Ich glaube, für Kinder ist so von der Schaukel zu springen auch immer so ein Erlebnis, und wenn das dann so passiert, dann...
After the funeral, Edie roped off Calvin's half of the room.
Was war das sein, I guess? Dann haben wir hier noch Fort Sam, das Schloss von Sam. Der hat auch sowas. Und das alles ein bisschen, ne? Und da kommen wir aber nicht rüber. Kann ich mich nur zu Sam gar nichts anschauen?
Mom said Grandpa Sam enlisted at 18 and never set foot in the room again.
Muss ich zur Tür raus? Ah ne, da gibt's noch was. Sam geht's, glaube ich, hier nichts. Richtig cooler Geheimgang, ne? Hauptsache die Bücher sind fake. Ja, das ist schon cool gemacht. Ich meine, in so einem Haus zu leben wäre echt ein Erlebnis. Erleben. Sagen. Ja.
The passages were a pretty tight fit. They'd obviously been built for smaller hands and bellies.
Was sind wir denn hier? Oh, wir sind bei Barbara.
Growing up, I always thought of Barbara as a child star.
Nein, ich will dich nicht zurückklettern.
I never thought about how hard it must have been for her afterwards.
Wird auch nur 16 ist sie geworden, ne?
Of all the stories people wrote about Barbara's death, I'm surprised Edie saved this one.
Old Jack here with another ghastly tale inspired by America's most unfortunate family. I'm calling it The Surprise Ending of Barbara Finch. As a child star, Barbara was famous for her scream. Now at 16, she was all washed up, a has-been. But in a lucky break, she'd been asked to perform
Comic-Con.
her signature scream at a local convention for monster movie fans. It was just the boost her career needed. Unfortunately, her scream hadn't aged well.
Getting better. I think you just need the right motivation.
Her biggest fan and current boyfriend, Rick, was about to demonstrate when...
Now that was a great scream.
It was Barbara's father, Sven. He'd slipped into a table saw and had to be rushed to the emergency room. So Barbara got stuck babysitting her youngest brother, Walter. Her convention comeback was cancelled.
Oh, schade.
Okay, I'm hearing frustration, but I'm not hearing terror. What if I tried...
A gang of hoodlums in Halloween masks have been terrorizing Orcas Island tonight. Police are urging residents to...
Okay.
You're right! Also, I loved your delivery on that. Why is your basement door locked?
Because my dad likes making puzzles and secret passages. There's a key hidden in the music box. The secret is to keep winding and winding until finally the key pops out.
Thanks, babe. I'll be back in a sec.
20 minutes later, Rick hadn't returned. So Barbara went to look for him. right on cue.
Ah, typischer Horrorfilm, so wie man es kennt, ne? Da würde ich mich
She
sputen.
reached for the music box. And as she wound the key, she listened for Rick, but the house was silent.
Ist er nicht mit dem Schlüssel über drunter gegangen? Oh, der hat ihn zurückgetan, okay. Es ist Michael Myers Musik.
I was just trying to scare you to help you find your scream.
Well, I'm not scared, Rick. I'm furious.
Then act furious. All I'm getting from you now is that you're hurt and confused and
She threw him out, but she kept a little something to remember him by.
Barb, have you seen my other crutch?
And she was still holding it when she fell asleep watching the late picture show. Hours later...
Barbara! Walter, what's going on up there? Ah! Okay, I'm coming up, but if this is a trick, you're dead, Walter.
Boah, der braucht meine Hilfe. Schnell. Wie der Wind. Komm ich geschwind. Wahrscheinlich hier durch, ne?
Walter vanished, but his bedside radio was still on.
Orcas Island police describe the man as 6 feet tall, with a steel hook for a hand. Residents are urged to lock all doors and windows and notify the police of any suspicious activity.
I returned, saw the hook man, and was speechless. He was quite smashing. He couldn't get enough of Barbara.
Okay, Barbara, there's gotta be another way out of here.
Erinnert mich irgendwie an SpongeBob. Gehen wir raus.
That night, she played her part beautifully. from inside the house.
Oh dear.
The monsters had come to surprise her. For Barbara, it was a dream come true. Then she saw what kind of monsters they were, and she realized what was about to happen. She was going to be famous. And with her final breath, Barbara Finch gave the performance of her life. I wasn't there myself, but I hear Barbara was magnificent. Poor girl. She had a taste for stardom. But unfortunately, so did her fans. Of course, the police blamed it all on poor Rick, who disappeared the same night. And little Walter, hiding under his bed the whole time. He took it all pretty hard, but that's another story. As for Barbara, tucked inside the music box was all they ever found of her. Her ear.
Oh.
Now that's what I call a real eerie tale.
Also so wie ich das vernommen habe, ist Barbara daran gestorben, dass, wie soll ich sagen, dass
Edie
sie...
told me all Barbara wanted was to be remembered, as absurd as that comic was. Maybe what Edie saw was a happy ending.
Also ich glaube, dass sie wahrscheinlich wirklich von ihren Fans umgebracht worden war, weil das kann ganz gut sein. Sie hatte sich ja für dieses Treffen da angemeldet, aber lief ja nicht. Soll ich jetzt wieder rein oder gibt's hier ein... Ah ne, jetzt kann ich unten, jetzt kann ich nach unten gehen, zur Uhr, ne? Jetzt wissen wir das mit der Uhr wieder. Praktisch.
I guess now I know why Mom didn't like me playing with the music box.
Jetzt gehen wir mal in den Keller. Das ist unser nächster Hinweis. Ah, schon unfassbar, wie hier alles ähnlich ist. Wirkt alles gerade noch ein Stück gruseliger jetzt. Aber ja, alle sind auf eine komische Art und Weise gestorben. Das Unglück der Familie Edith. Der Familie Finch ist Barbara. Jetzt müssen wir es drehen. Perfekt. Aber es ist nicht so ein gruseliges Spiel, also keine Sorge, Leute. Ich glaube, das war die gruseligste Geschichte tatsächlich. Sieht ja auch fast alles gleich aus hier, ne? Sven.
Mom said the basement was off limits, unless I wanted another tetanus shot.
Also anscheinend war hier Sven zugange. Ein guter alter Sven.
I saw Edie sneak down to the basement once, carrying packages. I thought maybe she was hiding presents. It turned out she was hiding a lot more than that.
Okay. Schon klar, wieso man nicht will, dass wir hier runtergehen. Es ist so dunkel, ne?
I remember asking Mom once about where Walter had gone.
Wow. Was ist hier für
She said
passiert?
after Barbara died, he got as far away as he could. If there's a pattern in all these stories, I think it's that none of us has gotten very far.
Also er wollte weit weg und hat sich einen Untergrundzugang gebaut, ne? Mit einem Bild draußen, dass er schauen kann, dass er sich nicht so alone fühlt. Walter. Hat auch lang gelebt. Hat gern Dosen gemocht, so wie es aussieht.
Goodbye, everyone. I can't believe I've been down here for 30
Boah,
years.
30 Jahre.
On that first day, after the shaking started, I didn't think I'd survive a week. But after a few days, I settled into a routine. That's what kept me sane. Having a schedule, living for today. I always expected to be dead tomorrow.
76. Wir können ja mal auf den Kalender gucken.
Even a monster on the other side of a door starts to feel normal. Almost friendly. And then one day, everything just
2005.
stopped. Whatever that thing was, it was gone. Maybe it got tired of waiting. Or maybe I just got tired of being afraid. It's been a week now, the longest in 30 years. I'm done waiting. I have to leave. Well, I still can.
Also er wird langsam alt, spürt es und will jetzt halt raus, weil er so lange sich verkrochen hatte, dass er denkt, ja nee, jetzt müssen wir rausgehen. Schon oft bei Menschen so, dass die irgendwann denken, so kann es nicht
I
weitergehen.
know it's out there somewhere. Whatever killed Barbara and Molly and Calvin.
Er hat halt Angst, ne, vor seinem
Maybe this
Schicksal quasi.
was all a mistake. But I need to stop living the same day, even if it kills me. Whatever's out there, I want you to know I'm ready for it. I'm going to appreciate all of it, especially the food. I don't mind if I only have a year left, or a month, or a single week. I'd be happy with one new day. I can already imagine the sun on my face.
Eigentlich echt schade um Walter.
Walter died when I was 6. I can't believe my mom never told me he was down here. I'm sure my mom was trying to protect me.
Müssen wir jetzt nicht runter? Doch. Ich dachte zuerst, er springt runter.
Maybe she was afraid I'd end up like Walter.
Ups, nee, ich will nicht aufstehen. Manchmal ist die Steuerung nicht ganz so sicher, ob man jetzt runtergehen muss oder rauf oder... Ich muss hier nach oben drücken, damit ich nach unten gehen kann. Oh.
But if she never told me about an uncle under the house, I can only imagine what else she was hiding. I don't want to make the same mistakes she made. Trying to bury something that's still alive. Now that there's only one of us left, or maybe 2, I thought it was time I heard the stories for myself and found out what happened to everyone else. But now I'm worried the stories themselves might be the problem. Maybe we believed so much in a family curse, we made it real.
Ist Walter beerdigt worden? Der arme Walter.
I don't know if I should even be writing this. Maybe it'd be better if all this just died with me. But I thought you should know about your family. And the history you're a part of.
Ich dachte, ich kann ins Wasser gehen. Entschuldigung.
Though to be honest, I feel as lost as you probably do right now. I think the people in these stories believed them, for what that's worth.
Die Geschichte von Edith Finch ist eigentlich recht tragisch.
And when you look at the house, that history of imagination and stubbornness and madness, any of it seems possible. I think we've been surrounded by death for so long, we've just gotten used to it. What kind of family finishes building a cemetery before starting the house?
Das stimmt schon.
It's embarrassing for me to admit this, but the pet cemetery made me more uncomfortable than the human one. 3 of the gerbils were mine, and 2 had been my fault.
Immer Hund, Katze. Katze hatte der Hund, Lucy, Boko, Taka, Zoe. Sehr viele Haustiere, die gestorben sind. Schatzi. Okay, das ist süß.
Sven built the house, but it was Edie who designed the cemetery.
Molly. Calvin. Sven und Edith Finch. Er hat halt Bücher geliebt, ne? Walter Finch. Er hat ja im Keller gelebt. Barbara Finch. Kleines Stern.
I'm sure Odin's monument had been Edie's idea. My mom was always trying to move on, but for Edie, the past never went away. She could see it poking out of the water at low tide.
Ist das da das Haus? Das kann sogar noch sein, das alte, ne?
Edie said she dreamed about the old house every night. Edie's side was always easier for me to understand. But the older I get, the more I can see where my mom was coming from. Her dad had been pretty strict, but it wasn't enough to save her brothers. She was just trying to do better.
Gregory, Sam, Gus Finch. Sam war ja im Militär, ne? Muss ich jetzt? Ja, doch, kann ich nicht, ne?
She lost 2 of her brothers, just like I did. I get why she tried so hard to protect us. We never found Milton's body, so my mom insisted we were putting up a monument, not a tombstone. There's so many things I wish I could ask my mom now. Part of me thinks this is what she wanted all along. For me to come back someday and find everything out for myself.
Wir finden jetzt alles raus. Keine Sorgen, Edith.
But looking back on it now, if she told me there was going to be so much climbing, I never would have come when I was 22 weeks pregnant.
Sie ist schwanger, das heißt, wir wissen, sie hat ein kleines Baby in ihrem Bauch. Deswegen ist sie vielleicht auch so langsam bei den Sachen. Ja, so vorsichtig. Wie ich hier durch? Das ist eine Leiter, ne? Ja.
I never met Grandpa Sam, but I think he and my mom had a lot in common. They were both pretty intense. Sam spent his life shooting photos, but Mom said he got nervous being in front of the camera. I guess we're all afraid of something.
Dawn, I promise, you'll never forget this weekend.
Yes, sir.
These memories are gonna last a lifetime.
Hmm? Am I gonna have to shoot anything?
It's a hunting trip, Dawn. Shooting is strongly encouraged.
What?
Perfect.
It's gonna rain the whole weekend, isn't it? I will never forget this weekend, Dad.
That's the spirit. Okay, got it.
Edith Finch, das heißt, sein
I'm gonna take some
Nationalpark.
pictures, okay?
Just be careful. That camera's older than you are. Hey!
That's a keeper.
Definitely should not have drunk all that coffee.
I'm just saying, I'm not always gonna be here, Dawn. You'll need to remember this stuff, if you want to survive.
I'll be fine, Dad.
You know who else thought he was gonna be fine?
Some guy who died.
Dawn, I'm being serious.
I know, Dad. You're always serious. Doesn't being out here make you want to chill out?
Well, to tell you the truth, I haven't been out here in 20 years.
Oh,
Dad!
Hirsch.
Good eyes, Dawn.
Vögelchen.
Before you take the shot, let me get a picture of it.
Dad, I...
Just breathe. Turn it. Let me get behind you.
Do I have to do this?
Dawn, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to survive, you'll need to be strong.
Au.
Great shot, Dawn!
Ja, das nenne ich ziemlich heftig sein.
I'm proud of you, Dawn. Always remember that, okay?
Dad, it's twitching. I think
That's
it's
totally
still...
normal, Dawn. Just focus on the camera. Try not to think about...
Dad!
Karma! Aber sowas von... Eieiei. Ja, da haben wir Dawns Tod.
All these stories,
Sams Tod,
that's the
Entschuldigung.
one I wish most that my mom had told me.
Der alte Jäger Sam. Wie lange hat er gelebt? Oh, 33 Jahre. Und Kleines Stückchen. Haben wir hier noch was?
Instead of hiding from death, Sam seemed to go out of his way to meet it.
Der so, YOLO. Okay. Okay. Ja, man merkt, typische, also wirklich ein heftiger Jäger, ne? Gehen wir hier durch. Was es können. Heizung. Oder ne, Lüftung wahrscheinlich. Macht mehr Sinn. Jetzt krabbeln
After
wir
Sam
erstmal.
died, my mom and Edie got really close. They'd both lost a lot.
Ja, alle haben ja irgendwie viele Verwandten verloren. Hier gar nicht durch. Ah, doch. Die hatten zu dritt ein Zimmer. Krass.
Dear Kay, do you remember the way Gregory used to laugh when he thought he was alone? Like something funny was happening, but only he could see it.
Hold on, sweetie.
Wie sie sich aufregt.
Hello? Sam, I told you I don't want to talk right now. I don't want to.
I wish she could have told us about the war he saw. There's so much I don't understand. About Gregory. About everything.
Wieso bin ich so ein grünes Männchen?
But I know what happened wasn't your fault. I'm sure he's happy. And he'd want you to be happy too. Good luck, Kay. Love, Sam.
Ich glaube, er ist ertrunken. Macht jetzt am meisten Sinn. Armer Greggy. 1 Jahr ist er geworden, ne? Und hat hier kein Bett. Vielleicht ist er später ausgezogen. Und hier haben wir gleich die neue Geschichte, oder? Ein Gedicht für Gus.
A poem for Gus, who always said the wedding was a bad idea. Our father never hit us kids, at least not very hard, before the day my brother said with teenage disregard that he'd be dead before he'd see a wedding in our yard. Father made him come, of course, but Gus stood far apart, just flew his kite and bottled up the storm inside his heart. I tried to talk him out of it, but though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom were the words that
I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Jetzt? Oh.
When the time for photos came, Dad ordered him to come here. But Gus declined, and as a sign held up his middle finger.
Oh.
The wind picked up, and panicked geese appeared and quickly went. But all the humans did that day was go inside the tent. Rain came down in buckets then, but no one seemed afraid that nature might destroy the tent our dad had crudely made. The thunder sounded much too close and full of angry power, but all my father said to this was, "Make the music louder." I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea, and foam. But I didn't, until we found you.
Wow. Also er ist im Drachensteigen gestorben, so wie es aussieht.
She never talked about him, but Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus.
Armer Gus. Noch weiter ist die. Oder klettern.
My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died.
Yeah, 22. Woche. Schwanger, klettern. Oh, das ist dann. Das ist hier die Geschichte von Dawn, so wie es
She
aussieht.
spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay.
Ah, Dawn ist meine Mutter. Oh, ist das süß.
Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died. My mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English.
Hier ist gar kein Buch von Dawn, oder wie? Dawn Finch.
Louis was born a year later. When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back.
Wie süß, die haben so 3 Gärten gehabt, das ist schon cool.
Kids in the house again.
Eigentlich ein
The house
cooles
had to get a
Haus.
little bigger, but Edie was used to that.
Wo ich Höhenangst hätte. Sieht ja auch nicht alles so stabil aus.
Things were good. Almost normal.
Richtiges
But it didn't
Lehrerzimmer.
last.
Ich will halt nichts verpassen und ich hoffe, ich verpasse auch nichts.
The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th birthday, when Edie gave him a castle.
Milton.
After Milton disappeared, the only thing he left behind was a room full of paintings.
Also Milton hat man ja die Leiche nicht gefunden, haben wir beim Friedhof gesehen. Der hat aber echt ein schönes Zimmer gehabt eigentlich. Oder halt ein sehr fantasievolles. Wir haben hier sehr wunderschöne Sachen. Milton ist auch da. Ein Bild. 92 geboren, ein König. Überall Farbe. Hat richtig künstlerisch.
Milton Finch in
Der Zauberinsel. Zauberinsel, Zauberpinsel, Entschuldigung.
I was 4 when Milton disappeared.
Gerade Milton. War sicher ein lustiger Dude.
Mom spent months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors.
Ja, das Fenster stimmt.
Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out.
Ich habe das Gefühl, wir haben ja hier... Eddie sind wir. Gut, bis jetzt haben wir alle, glaube ich, ne? Dawn fehlt noch. Edith und Lewis. Glaube ich. Ich hoffe, wir haben alle. Wenn wir was verpassen würden, fände ich das mega schade. Auch für euch vor allem. Ich meine, das hier hätten wir wahrscheinlich verpassen können. Plötzlich jetzt, weil wir hier hochgehen jetzt.
Mom definitely blamed Edie, but I think Louis blamed himself. After he graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room. Until Mom got him a job at the cannery. Everyone always told me to stay out of Lewis's
Eine
room.
Shisha.
Except Louis.
Ups, falsche Taste, Entschuldigung. Einfach eine Shisha. Haben wir auch hier 2 Sachgänge? Auch hier geht's nicht weiter. Schade. Ja, stabiles Haus, Brudi. Es wird noch eine tolle Geschichte hier.
Louis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
On the Land Turbo.
Louis and I spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot.
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Louis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Louis first noticed the monotony of his daily life. He kept working at the cannery, but he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to
Und jetzt?
wander. I asked him to describe it.
Ah, ich muss jetzt gleichzeitig mit der Maus was machen und mit den WASD-Tasten, ne?
He said he started small.
Das ist das Gleiche.
Imagining a labyrinth. He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. Bats. And toads. And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head. But he took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself. But he found something more. I worried
Das
about
ist
him then,
mega cool.
daydreaming at the cannery. I
Also.
spoke with his boss. But he said Louis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused. Like a whole new Louis. So I let him go on. I even encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first.
Oh, ein süßer
He told
Bauer.
me he'd made a new friend. On the edge of a city he named Louis Topia. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick. Then he made musicians.
Du, 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 du.
And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger. He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination, so he could do whatever he wished.
Oh, hierauf muss ich.
He held an election for mayor. And he won. They begged him to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him. He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville.
Louisville.
St. Louis.
St. Louis.
We started drifting away from our reality. Minneapolis. Until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery. Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Louis kept sailing on.
Das klingt richtig traurig.
In Louisburg, he heard rumors of a
Königin? Aber Königin hat doch eigentlich...
handsome queen.
Königin hat doch eigentlich immer... Können wir nicht zurückfahren, ne? Nee.
The queen was on her own quest for
finsteren Schlangen.
sinister serpents.
Spicy.
He followed the sound of her electric sitar. His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound.
Es ist alles nur Fantasie gefühlt,
He
ne?
knew the world was all in his imagination. But he was so proud of having created it. In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king.
Herrscher oder ein Kaiser, was ist denn das?
For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him that the real Louis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace. My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
Das ist die Dosenfabrik, so wie es aussieht, ne?
He began to forget the world we know.
Uiuiui. Ja, hier würde ich nicht arbeiten wollen, das ist...
I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker.
Da bin ich wahrscheinlich, ne, da vorne.
He began to despise the man with a royal contempt. I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder. The palace would be packed with his companions.
Aber das ist schon... Das erinnert mich so ein bisschen an die Raymond-Figuren.
Including the wise Calico who'd insisted on advising him.
Danke, danke, danke. Danke, du Soldat.
His queen waited, holding his crown.
Hey. Mach was.
There was only one thing left to do. Bend down his head. And the rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
Ja. Armer Junge.
My brother was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
Mal Louis. Es tut mir schon leid für ihn. Ich glaube, der Job hat ihm nicht wirklich gut getan, wenn ich ehrlich bin.
On the way back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder. I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left. My mom ended up leaving everything behind. What happened that night had been coming for a long time. Maybe it should have come sooner. But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night.
Letzte Edie? Dawn. Wir haben aber nicht Dawn gesehen. Ich hoffe, wir haben die nicht verpasst.
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
The power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
Also der Eintritt ist ja gleich daneben.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning. Okay?
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it.
Das ist das Haus
When the
der Familie
fog
Finch.
rolled in, I lost my way. I got turned around. For a while, I wandered. I started seeing things. Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them. Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go! I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great-Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot.
Hui.
We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it. But she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you.
Oh, das ist der Geburtskanal.
Now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
Also, eine wunderschöne Geschichte. Auch sehr traurig und aber doch gleichzeitig toll. Und anscheinend weiß jetzt nicht viel mehr dazu. Auf Basis von jemand, der auch wirklich gestorben ist, so es aussieht. Andenken an die Person. Aber ja, wirklich auch ein tolles Spiel. Sehr schöne Geschichte, auch wenn etwas traurig, aber wundervoll gemacht. Und ja, ich würde es irgendwann vielleicht auch wieder spielen, weil es irgendwie so schön war. Ich meine, es ist etwas ganz anderes als viele andere Spiele. Und die Einzigartigkeit finde ich toll in dem Spiel gemacht. Manchmal ist es ein bisschen brutaler, als ich dachte. Auch. Aber alles in allem ist es ein wunderschönes Spiel. Und ja. Kann ich dazu jetzt nicht sagen. Barbaras Tod war eigentlich irgendwie der grausamste. Und wir haben jetzt einige Geschichten mitbekommen. Jetzt wissen wir auch, wie Dawn und Edith ist verschwunden. Wahrscheinlich ist sie zum Schiff gegangen und dann ist das Meer zurückgekommen. Sehr wahrscheinlich, oder? Und generell sind die alle ja ein bisschen verflucht. Ich meine, sie ist ja auch gestorben. Wahrscheinlich bei der Geburt. Ich weiß nicht sonst wann genau. Aber ja. Schade, dass alle gestorben sind. Naja, ich hoffe, es hat euch gefallen und ihr lasst ja einen Kommentar dazu da. Daumen nach oben, wenn es euch gefallen hat. Ja, Kommentar würde ich mich eher freuen, was ihr so von der Geschichte hält und ob es euch betroffen hat. Ich muss sagen, so am Schluss hat es mich noch recht stark gerührt. Weil ich das jetzt nicht so, weil es, ja, manchmal geht es mir richtig nahe, wenn es sowas ist, wo dann wie einen guten Abschluss hat. Und das hat sie ja auch wirklich gehabt. Aber nicht oft, sogar die Playtests werden erwähnt, was auch nicht oft ist. Ah, das ist das ganze Team, wo es hergestellt hat. Das ist cool. Das ist echt wirklich wunderschön. The End. So. Und damit war's das. Ich glaube, wir haben alle abgeschlossen. Bei Geschichte wiederholen können wir alle so ein bisschen wiederholen, ne? Ja, so wie es aussieht, haben wir alle abgeschlossen. Und ich hoffe, es hat euch gefallen. Mir hat es gefallen. Es war ein tolles Spiel. Ich kann mich nicht beschweren. Und ja, also ich glaube, die beste Geschichte fand ich schon Milton. Oder nee, nicht Milton, Lewis. Lewis war vom König her schon ein bisschen sehr gut gemacht. Aber alle hatten was Spezielles und waren auf ihre eigene Art und Weise schön. Also danke, dass ihr da wart. Danke fürs Zuschauen. Und ich sag mal bis nächsten Mal, ne? Bis nächsten Mal, ja. Bis nächstes Mal. Einen schönen Abend, Tag, Morgen, was ihr gerade habt oder Nacht.